Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. As always, my name is John. If you're ready to dive deeper into the world of Java programming, you have come to the right place, most definitely. Today, we are tackling two of the most fundamental building blocks you will ever encounter in any programming language, especially in Java, and that is variables and operators. Think of it this way. If you're building a house, variables are like all the different materials you need, your bricks, your wood, your glass, and operators are the tools that you use to put them together, like hammers, saws, and drills. You simply cannot build anything without them. In this video, we are going to break down exactly what variables are, how to declare and use them with the different data types like numbers, text, and true or false values. We will then explore all the essential operators in Java, from the basic math to comparisons and logical operators, showing you how they allow your programs to perform calculations, to make decisions, and even to manipulate data. By the end of this lesson, you will have a rock-solid understanding of these core concepts, empowering you to start writing much more dynamic and functional Java code. So, please, grab your favorite drink, get ready to code along, and let's jump right in. One of the most powerful features of any programming language is the ability to manipulate variables. Now, a variable is a named location that stores a value. So it's important to distinguish this. A variable is not a name for the data itself, but for a location in memory that can hold data. So values are things that can be printed, things that can be stored, and also things that can be operated on. So the string that we have, or rather that we printed in the first program that we wrote, the Hello World program, this hello world here is a perfect example of a value. So to store a value, then you have to create a variable. Now, I can begin by creating a class. We can call this variable example. And this class is the class that we're going to use to illustrate exactly what variables in Java can do, and how variables in Java are supposed to be created. So in this, I'll also add main there, and then we're going to have this discussion now. When creating a variable in Java, so a variable is a combination of three things. Now those three things are a data type. Let me list them. Maybe should have made this a multi-line comment. So the three things that we need are: one, a data type; number two, we need an identifier; number three, we need an initializer. Actually, the keyword to use here is optional initializer. Or in other words, this is a value. Now, according to the syntax rules of Java, the most basic names are identifiers. Now, identifiers can be used to name classes. We can use them to name variables. We can use them to name subroutines or methods. And an identifier is a sequence of one or more characters. In some instances, it's actually a combination of more than one word. I'll give you an example of an identifier. This class of ours is called variable example. So variable example is a combination of characters, but still a combination of more than one word. So variable example is an identifier. Main here is another example of an identifier. Now when it comes to this part of optional initializer, or the value, we've just discussed this hello world string in the quotation marks as the value. Now, the biggest lesson that we're going to learn on variables is data types. Now, when it comes to declaring variables, the very first thing that we must have is the data types. Now, Java has defined 8 simple or elemental data types. I will list them and then we're going to discuss them. So, the 8 simple types, let me just call them that. So we have bytes, we have short, we have integer, int, we have long, we have character, we have floats, we have double, and then finally we have boolean. Okay, now the 8 data types, the 8 simple types that we have, can be classified as primitive data types. Here's the thing. When we have talked about variables, in the brief introduction we've just given, a variable we've said is a container that holds data. A question I would like to pose, which will take us now to the next part: what type of data can those containers hold? And that is where data types come in. In order for us to combine those 3 things, a data type, an identifier, and an optional initializer, we will have to understand what a data type is in order for us to now proceed. So in Java, all data types fall into one of 2 major categories. It's either a primitive data type or a non-primitive data type. So in us understanding the difference between these two, it's very fundamental when it comes to writing the correct and efficient Java code that you're going to need to write. We can start with the first part, which is the primitive data types. I have a list of 8, these 8 simple types, and these are the primitive data types. So what exactly does primitive mean? So primitive data types. For the primitive data types, think of them as the raw basic building block of information. So when you declare a primitive variable, it directly stores the actual value right there in its memory slot. When it comes to the examples of primitive data types, the 8 up here will suffice. Number 2, we have what we call non-primitive data types. For the non-primitive data types, instead of directly storing the value, they actually store a reference, which is essentially a memory address to where the actual data is located in the computer's memory. So we can say this stores a reference to the data and not the data itself. That's how we can simplify it. When it comes to non-primitive data types, I will mention string. I will mention arrays. Arrays is a conversation we're going to have later. I will mention classes. When it comes to classes, variable example is a class. So that's what we mean. I will also mention interfaces. Later on in the conversation on object-oriented programming, we're going to talk about interfaces. So that conversation we're going to have at that point, so that we differentiate between a class and an interface, and we see the advantages that each of them offers. Okay. When it comes to variable declaration, let's put it this way. Variable declaration is a combination of data type and identifier. I will give an example. Actually, I can give two, like that. So we have a variable called name, which is a string. Now, the string data type guides Java, guides JVM, or rather JDK, in terms of what data to expect in this particular variable. Integer, int, simply tells Java that it is expecting a whole number to be passed there. Now, let's look at an example of how, or rather each data type amongst what we have mentioned up here. So let me just separate it this way. I can start there, age, and for age I can give a value like 25, should be okay. And then we can go to another variable, maybe I can call this count, and count can have a value of 100. So in this, we're going to say that these are integer variables, and integer variables represent whole numbers. That is 1. 2, we can go to the double variables, and double is just a number with a decimal point. That is what a double is. So for us to declare or create double, same procedure is what we're going to follow. So I'll use the data type first. I'll create or add the identifier. So I can create a variable called price, and then I can come and add something to it. So 19.99. It's just a number with a decimal point. I can create another one here, and then we can call this temperature. And for the temperature, we can say what, 98.6, an example. So that's the other data type that we have. For a string, we don't have a lot that goes into it. A string is just a collection or a combination of characters that form a word, that form a sentence, that form a paragraph, however you look at it. So let me up here create string variables, and let me mention this. A string, or rather string, is a class. More on that later, but string is a class, very important. So for name, let me add the name there, and then I can go to the city. So my city is going to be Nairobi there. Okay, allow me to mention something else as we progress. All statements in Java must be enclosed with a semicolon at the far end. Those are the syntax rules. We're going to get familiar with them as we move along writing code in Java. So currently we have 3 data types already taken care of. So let's move on to another data type. We can talk about boolean variables. Now for boolean, this is a variable that should represent either true or false. Simple as that. There is nothing else that is expected with boolean variables. So same conversation, we're going to start with a data type, then we move on to the identifier. So for instance, I can say is active, and then we come and pass the value, and the value can only be one of 2. Again, we can create another one here, maybe has license, and then I can come and add false there. Okay, the other data type that we have, let's talk about characters. Character variables. Now a character is a single character on your keyboard. On your keyboard. So that single character that we have on your keyboard should be enclosed in the single quotation marks. So I can create a variable called grade. Then I can come and add the grade there in the single quotation marks. Very important. Then I can come and add another variable. Maybe I can call this initial, and the initial to my name is J, and it has to be exactly 1, a single character. If it exceeds 1, then definitely we have issues, we have a problem. Next, still on the numeric data types, we have a variable of type long. Long is numeric, and long is supposed to be a number that is too big to fit within an integer. Very important. So for this one, maybe we can create a variable called population, and in population we can say, let me just guess a number, 80 million. And for the long data type, or the variable itself, it must have an L immediately following the number. Very important to distinguish that. Then we also have floats. Float variable. So float is a lower level. No, let me put it this way: a number with a decimal point as well. For the floats or floating point number, I can create maybe a variable called weight there, and then I can come and enclose something, a value. What we did with long, we are also going to follow the same rule when it comes to a floating point number. Immediately following the number, we're going to have an F at the far end. Okay, now up to that point we should be good. Here's how we can confirm whether we are okay. We can just come here and compile this variable example.java. We won't deploy the program because it doesn't have anything to output. It doesn't have anything to display. But as long as it compiles successfully, we are okay. Now, let me repeat something. When you declare a variable, you are creating a named storage location. When you make an assignment to a variable, you're actually giving it a value. So right now in all these variables of ours, we have assigned a value, meaning we have given them a value. Now, the other conversation is about printing of variables. We have a few variables that we have created up to this point, and it's important for us to print the values that are held within those variables. When it comes to printing a variable, we don't have much that we are supposed to do with that particular portion. So printing variables. In Java, we always use the system.out.println, and system.out.println, we said, is the standard output stream that we use to display data or output on our terminal. Now, in Java, or rather programming generally, but in Java, it's possible for us to concatenate. It's possible for us to join a string with a variable, and we always use the plus operator or symbol. And very important, plus when used in numbers where we have two numbers is an arithmetic operator that will add the two values. But the way we are using plus currently, we are just trying to display the value that is held within this variable, but we are also saying join this string to this variable simply. So we can repeat the same. I'll just copy this, I can paste it there. We can do the same for age, and we have that variable that we called age up there. We can do the same for maybe price. We don't need all of them, so we can have price. Then in the price, maybe I can come and add a dollar sign there. Then can add price there. From there we can go to city. So city, we'll change this again, city. From there we can go to grade. That's the other part. So grade there. Yeah, okay. Next, after the grade, maybe we can display one boolean variable. So maybe we can use that is active, and then we have that variable there. Then we can move on to something like the population. Yeah, population, what we held within the long variable of type long. So I can come here and also add population there. Then finally, final thing that we can display would be weight, probably. So weight there. Then can do that. On the other side of this, we can as well just add the unit of measurement, maybe kilograms. Let me just write it in short, kilos should be fine. So let's try this one out and see what we actually get. So I'll come here. We're going to repeat the process of compiling variable example.java. So we're going to repeat the process of compiling, and we are recompiling it afresh because we have made some changes to the source code. So compilation should be successful unless there is a place we made a mistake, but we are okay. Then we can deploy this. So we have variable example there. So I'll just deploy this, and it's going to just give a printout of everything that we have just asked of it. So that's the first part, the first conversation when it comes to variables. I would like us to create another example or another program that still discusses variables. To a larger extent, it's just meant to make us familiar with variables and more comfortable with variables and how to use them. So for example number 2, I would like us to create a class called student_info, and as the name suggests, this example is going to show variables in a different context. So storing student information, we are going to demonstrate how the different data types work together to represent real-world data with variables for names, for the numbers, for email addresses, and the various status flags that we may have or we are going to have for a student. So for this particular class, allow me to save it first. Student_info.java. We're going to come in here and add main. Good. Then let's begin. We have the student personal information, what we could call maybe the biodata. But anyway, for the personal information, we can have first name. So for the first name, maybe I can come and add that. We can move on to the last name. So for the last name here, I would propose to use that name. Then we can have the student ID as the final thing. So for the student ID, let me use that. Next, we're going to have academic information. For the academic information, we may begin with the GPA. So the GPA for this student probably would be 3.92. It's just an example. Then we can go to credits completed, and for this one we can do like 105. Then we can go to the major or the course. So for the course, this student is doing information technology. Yes. Okay. Next, we can go to the physical attributes of this student. So we can talk about height, and maybe we can specify height in centimeters, and we can give like 168 maybe. Then we can go to the weight. So weight in kg. So for the weight, maybe 68.9. It's just an example. From there, we can go to the contact information. So for the contact information of this student, we can specify email as the very first thing. So the email, maybe, let me just guess an email. Jico at where do we place this person? At maybe codeacademy.edu. That's the school. Then we can have the phone number. So for the phone number, being a string means I can add the phone number in any format that I wish. Something like that should be okay. From there, we can talk about the status flags. So the status flags, one question that we might address is whether this student is a full-time student or is a part-time student. So we can create a variable called is full-time, then we can say true, this is a full-time student. The other one, is it a self-sponsored student or is it a student who has a scholarship? So maybe we can have this variable has scholarship. We can as well just make it true. True for now. Then next, okay, sorry, I keep misspelling boolean. So is it a local student or is it an international student? So let's say false. This is a local student, most definitely. The other part, we can have the location information. Where exactly does this student come from? So for the location information, we can address the county. So for the county, maybe I can give an example of Nairobi. We can address the constituency. For the constituency, let's say Westlands. Sorry, misspelling there. Westlands. Okay. What else might we have missed? Additional information. Remember, the goal for all this is just to understand how variables are used to store data in our program. So for the additional information, probably I could add a character and I can create a variable called section which could have a value of a. In the same, I can talk about the national ID, and for the national ID, since it's a long number, maybe I know the ID numbers that we have locally don't have so many characters, but still we are talking about a practical example of where we can use variables. So maybe how much is owed to the institution, to the school. So maybe we can give a rough figure of 125,050 cents float. So remember, the goal is to have this figure being displayed in Kenyan shillings. From there, next, let's talk about how we display. So display all the students' information. So this is where we use the system out print line to display the student information, and we're actually going to start with the names of this student. So maybe we can have that, then first name, then I can have a space in between there, then we can go to last name. Probably allow me to just copy this instead of rewriting it over and over again, and it's going to be the same. So this is going to be ID, then we're going to be concatenating the variable called national. No, we don't need the national ID, we need the student ID, sorry, student ID. Then next, from there, we can talk about the major. What is the course that this student is taking up? And we already have that variable called major up there. From there, we can move on to the GPA. How does this student fare in the class environment? How do they perform? After the GPA, we can talk about the credits. So there is this variable called, where was it? Credits completed. That's the variable I'm looking for. Credits completed there. From there, let's display the email. So email there. From there, let's move on. After the email, we can maybe display the phone number. I think the variable we just called it for, yeah, phone number. Let me confirm email. Yeah, it's okay. Then after the phone number, maybe we can display the county. Where is this student residing currently? After the county, we're going to go to an answer. Do I say an answer or a question? A question. Is this a full-time student? So we had that variable that we called is full-time there. Then after that, we're going to go to the section just to display the section where this student currently is. From there, we're going to go to the very last thing, the tuition owed. So tuition owed, then we can maybe display it in Kenyan shillings, and we can have that. Once we are through, the only thing remaining is for us to just test. And in testing, let me clear the screen first. We are going to compile this student info class. After compiling, assuming we don't get any errors, we're going to proceed to deploy or load the bytecode basically, and it should give us all our data. Everything that we have held within the different variables is supposed to be displayed right there. So that's the first part, conversation about variables. The other part that we're going to discuss is a conversation on operators. Simply put, operators are special symbols which perform operations on one or more operands, which are the values or the variables. This is what we normally say. In order for us to have an actual operator, we must have two operands, one on the left and one on the right of our operator. So we have, or these operations can be mathematical, logical, relational, and so much more. Java offers all those. So the very first operators that we're going to discuss are arithmetic operators. So these are used to perform the common mathematical operations. So we have the plus, which we use for addition, we have the minus, which is a subtraction, we have the multiplication, we have the division, we have a division of floating point numbers, and then we have the modulo operator, which is supposed to represent the remainder. Now, there is an example here that represents or showcases just the arithmetic operators alone, but I would like us to just combine all those into one. So let's create a class. Maybe I can call this Java operators, just for us to have a comprehensive discussion revolving around all the operators without necessarily singling any of them out. So we have our class there, sorry. Then I'm going to add main method. So I'll give a list of the variables that we're going to use for demonstration. Yeah. So we're going to have a variable called a. We can assign a value of 10. We're going to have another variable called b, whose value can be 3. We have another variable called c, whose value could be, let's say, 5. Then we can have two boolean variables, x, which is true, and then y, which is false. There. Alright, so in order for us to showcase the arithmetic operators, so system out print line. Let me just format this output slightly. So arithmetic operators, and the point was that these are the normal mathematical operations. So maybe the first one that we're going to start with is the addition operator. So for the addition, it's just the plus. So maybe I can create a variable called sum. Sum could take a plus b. Then from there, we can display the value or the answer. So system out print line, and then let's see how we format the answer. Actually, for the answer, we can as well just combine the variables. So a excuse me, plus b equals 2, and then we add the sum there. So that's one. Allow me to just copy that, since again, as per my argument, we are just going to have the same thing. So subtraction operator, because we are only changing slightly. So this is going to be maybe difference. This one we change to a subtraction, then this one we change to difference. Okay. After that, we have the multiplication. So for the multiplication, we normally use the asterisk, that character right there. So we change this. Then this variable we could call the variable product, and right here we just change to product. From there, we have the division. So the division, maybe for the variable itself, allow me to call it quotient there. So we'll change this to a division. Also for the comment, let's update. Then we change this to quotient. Finally, we have the modulo operator. A division is meant to just be a division when you divide two numbers. But when it comes to the modular operator, the point is it's supposed to return the remainder of an integer division. Just the remainder. Okay, sorry. So this is modular operator, and it's actually the percentage symbol. So maybe let me call this remainder, and then we're going to come here and change this, and then we also change this to remainder. Okay, so moment of truth. Now let's see what we get as the output from the program that we have just created. So I'll clear that first, then we are going to compile this. So if we don't have any syntax errors, it should compile successfully. Then we're going to just load the bytecode operators. Then we get the arithmetic operators in that order, which so far we are okay. We are okay. Now, what comes next? What comes next is actually the assignment operators. Now, for the assignment operators, they are used to simply assign values to variables. So the simple assignment operator is the equals symbol. Compound assignment operators normally combine an arithmetic operation with assignment. We don't need to discuss much for this. We just have to maybe write its block of code. So I've copied the whole thing, and actually we didn't even need the whole thing. So yeah, this is assignment operators. We actually didn't need the whole thing. Okay, let me simplify this. We will just redo it again so that we work through it. So for a simple assignment, the equals symbol is enough. So maybe we can have a num1 variable which we can assign a value of, say, 15. Then when it comes to displaying, let me get rid of this. Sorry, there. So we can maybe just display the value of num1. So this is initially, before we do anything with it. So we can go through this list from, we already have this, so we can go through it from this, the addition assignment, subtraction assignment, multiplication assignment, all the way to the modular assignment, because we have all those. When going through them, I'll copy that block, that part, and addition assignment, which is plus equals there. So what we can have is num1 plus equals, instead of 15, let's just do 5. 5 is enough. Then maybe we can say what, after num1 plus equals 5, we get that as the new value of num1. Then we can move on to the other part. So for this other part is the subtraction assignment. So this is minus equals. Let's also reduce this figure to 3. Then after num1 minus equals 3, what do we get? From there, let's go to multiplication assignment. So this is going to be the asterisk. Yeah. So for the multiplication, we can multiply by, let's say, 2. don't need a very big figure there. So multiplication by 2 there, then division, assignment, so this is that one there, the forward slash, then let's say we divide by something like 4 should do, sorry, forward slash 4 there. Then what do we have remaining? We only have the modulo. So the modulo assignment, which is the remainder basically. So anyway, we change to the percentage symbol there and there. So for the modulo, maybe we can calculate with 3. 3 is a low figure, which should be okay for us. This is what I am also going to do. Allow me to add a /n there. We're going to jump 3 lines then move on to the assignment operators. So let's see this. We compile. As long as we don't have any syntax errors, we should be good. Then after compilation, we can deploy. Yeah. So here is the other part that we've just added. And that part has the assignment operators. Assignment operators. So next, allow me to move on to relational operators. Let me copy this. Relational operators are operators which I like to think of them as comparison operators. Here's the first one, equal to. And equal to is represented by 2 equal symbols. So we can create a variable here, and then we can call it maybe is equal, and then we can come and enclose A is equal to B. We are looking for an answer, true or false. A had a value of, I think, 10, and B, yeah, A had a value of 10, B had a value of 3. So they are not equal, obviously. So what we expect from this is false. So when it comes to, maybe we can just have a simple print line. We don't need to format it all right now. We can just do that. We can compile and deploy this first. So we can compile. After compilation is successful, we can load the bytecode there, and we get this. They are not equal, obviously. Then there is the other operator, not equal to, of which we use an exclamation mark and the equal symbol. If we were to repeat this there, and maybe we change to read is not equal. So the comparison that we're going to be doing there is that. So we actually expect this one to return true, because 10 is not equal to 5. Was it 5 or 3? 10 is not equal to 3. That is what we expect. So we can compile, and then we can deploy this, and it's supposed to give us true. So you get the general idea. Then we can go to greater than, less than. So greater than, and the greater than symbol, sorry, is that one there. And for the greater than, again, the point is the same. It's supposed to return either true or false. So let's say is greater. Then we just change this to So that one is greater, and the answer right now is true. 10 is actually bigger than 3, so we expect another true down there. So there is the true. Then we have greater than or equal to. So greater than or equal to. So is greater, equal. Let me just use that as the variable. So it's simply the greater than symbol together with the assignment or the equal symbol. Simple as that. So we expect true if 10 is either equal to 3 or greater than 3. So currently we still get true. Still get true here. Sorry, I made a mistake, slight mistake. Okay, I made a mistake on my side. Let me clear the screen first. Clear. Then we can reload this again. Operators. So this is the last thing that we added. So anyway, etc, etc. The other one is less than, and then we have less than or equal to, but it's the same basic idea. Same basic idea. The other operator that probably is worth mentioning, let me copy this, is the increment, decrement operators. So the increment and decrement operators are simple. Increment adds 1 to its operand, decrement subtracts 1 to its operand. But they're actually interesting because let me give an example of, we can begin with just increment. Now for the increment, let's say we have a value. Let's see which variable we could use. Let me just create one here. So we have a variable called value, and I can assign a value of say 5 to it. What increment means is actually if I was to take that variable and add 1, which maybe let me call this pre-increment. So plus plus and then value. Let me actually write both and then we discuss. Post increment value plus plus. There. They both do the same thing. The goal, the idea is add 1 to the current value, which is 5. So 5 plus 1 is supposed to give us 6. But there is a special meaning when the operator appears either before the variable or after the variable. For this part, we normally call it, let me even remove this, the prefix. Prefix is when the operator precedes the variable. It means increment first, then return the value. Let's actually see what we get. So we can come and add the system.out.println there. In this we can say prefix, and then we can add that variable there, just for you to get an understanding of exactly what we mean when we talk about prefix and postfix. So just one moment. Sorry, operators. Yeah. So we get this. That is the prefix. Now, next, for the postfix, because that is where this one comes in. For the postfix, it means return the value first. Return the value first, then increment. So currently it's supposed to give us 6 first, then later it's going to be adding, allow me to copy this, it's going to be adding the 1 later. So this is postfix, then this is going to be reading post increment there. So we can try that. We compile, then we deploy, then we get that. So the idea was return the value first, then increment later. If we were to maybe display, actually we just need this alone. Yeah, we should now get our answer, which after adding 1 we were actually expecting 7. Oh sorry, it still gives us 6. I displayed the wrong variable. It's actually supposed to be displaying, or we are supposed to be displaying value instead. So let's try this again. We compile. It's taking some time because we have more and more lines of code to go through. Then we deploy, and that is when we get 7. I was not supposed to display the post increment, I was supposed to display value. So with that, let's sum up the class that we have had today. The conversation has been on variables and operators, and very important to know that in variables we've talked about the data type, the identifier, and the value. Under the data types, we have talked about the primitive and non-primitive data types. When it comes to the operators, we've had a conversation on the arithmetic operators, we've had a conversation on the assignment operators, we've had a conversation on the relational operators, we've had a conversation on the increment and decrement operators. There are a lot more. In Java we do have unary operators, we do have logical operators, we do have bitwise operators, we do have ternary operator. So there are a few more operators that we have not yet mentioned, but in a later video we are going to finalize this whole discussion. So thank you so much for watching the video today. Remember, subscribe to the channel, ring that notification bell to always stay updated when we post new videos, and also remember to share to as many friends as possible. Until next time.